Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our hotel marketing workshop with global content specialists, where you will learn about hotel SEO and copywriting techniques to boost your direct bookings through your hotel website. So, welcome everybody. Please feel free to chat with us during the session. We will love to hear what you're thinking about and your questions and everything. Do you have the chat there? Use it. Don't be shy. Thank you all for joining us. We prepared a great session, actually, with lots of tips that you can use now and start seeing results. And this workshop is a collaboration between Asksuite, 5-star content, and hospitality copywriting. My name is Paula. I'm the content marketing specialist at Asksuite, and I will be the host and moderator of this workshop. I'm sure if you are here today with us, it's because you have one, two, at least 3 questions about SEO and copyright. So we encourage you all to write your questions on the chat about these topics. We will do our best to answer you at the end of the show and also between the presentations. So again, take the best of this opportunity, because you have this amazing opportunity to ask directly to two global experts about SEO and copywriting. So it's not every day that you get this chance. The idea here is to be very interactive and also that you learn something. So write your questions to us, and we will do our best to answer them all. Okay, so first of all, let me welcome our guest that you can see on the screen here. We have Jen Zayak. She is the content marketing specialist at 5-star content, and she works with global hotel brands, independent properties, and hotel brands, independent properties on content strategy, SEO, and website copywriting. So hello, Jen, and welcome to our workshop, and thanks for being here today.
Great. Thank you for having me, Paula. I'm excited to be here.
We also have welcome, and we also have Juliana Hahn. She is a technical hospitality copywriter at Hospitality Copywriting. And Juliana leverages her industry experience to craft engaging content for hospitality tech companies, hotels, and online publications. So welcome, Juliana, and thank you so much for being here today as well.
Hi, Paula. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here and to share some of our knowledge today.
Yeah, like I said, we have a lot. Thank you, girls, for being here, and we have a lot to cover. So let's get this started. We are going to start with Jen. She will talk about hotel SEO and the 3 proven ways to get more website traffic and bookings. And I will say it again. If you're watching us now, please write your questions to our specialist. We will be very happy to answer you, and don't be shy. Take the best of this opportunity. So Jen, please, the stage is yours. Go ahead and can start your presentation about hotel SEO.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to just share my screen here. One moment. It's coming up. All right, here we go. Like Paula said, I'm going to be speaking on hotel SEO. I'm going to give 3 proven ways to get more traffic and bookings. So first, just a really quick intro. My name is Jen, and I specialize in all things hotel content marketing. I've worked on property as a marketing manager for hotels in Boston and in London, and now I work directly with independent hotels and a few chains as a freelance copywriter. I also publish a ton of useful resources and free guides on my website, which you can check out at 5starcontent.co. So today's session is on SEO, which I know is not exactly every hotelier's favorite topic, but hopefully we'll demystify a few things together. So to do this, I'm going to walk you through a simple 3-step framework that breaks it all down. And of course, we'll have some time at the end for a little Q&A too. So first things first, what is SEO and why does it matter? SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and it's the process of applying certain techniques to your website, both the content and the structure, in order to get more traffic from search engines. There are about 7 billion Google searches happening every day. billion with a B. So Google has to be sophisticated enough to deliver the best piece of content to the user based on what it is they're searching for. They've actually gotten so good at this that organic search is the #1 driver of all website traffic, more than social media and more than paid advertising. So it probably won't surprise you to hear that the results on page 1 win the vast majority of that traffic. Studies have actually shown that the first result on page 1 gets around 32% of all clicks. And combined, the first 3 results get about 75%. And if you want to hear the oldest joke on the internet, just ask any digital marketer, where's the best place to hide a dead body? And they'll tell you it's page 2 of Google, because sadly, less than 1% of Google searchers click anything on page 2. So showing up on page 1 gives your hotel website more visibility, more traffic, and a bigger audience of potential direct bookers. So you might be thinking, well, aren't all the top spots already taken up by advertising? But here's the thing about ads, they can be a quick win. But unless you've got a lot of cash, ads are a short-term strategy. Ads require continuous budget, month after month after month. And as soon as that budget dries up, so does your traffic and bookings. SEO is an investment in long-term growth. When it's done correctly, SEO sets your website up to continually drive consistent, high-quality traffic and bookings over time. Now, SEO is a big topic with a lot of moving parts, and we've only got a short amount of time together today. So we're going to get right to the heart of what you can actually do right now to help your hotel with SEO. #1 is pick a race you can win. This is all about researching and targeting the right hotel keywords. So I'll show you a few things to look for. #2. Create content your guests will love. Your audience and Google need to see some kind of value from you. No amount of tricks or sketchy tactics can make up for poor content. And finally, #3, get your technical house in order. And there's all kinds of technical things on and off your website that matter to Google, which might sound kind of intimidating, but I'll show you a few things you can do without needing a developer. And you're also going to hear me mention a bunch of different tools and resources that help with all of this, but don't worry too much about writing them all down because I'm including a slide at the very end with all of these recommendations, so you can just screenshot that if you want to check them out later. So what does it mean to pick a race you can win? First, you need to understand how people actually use Google to find a hotel. I'm using Boston as an example, but know that this pattern of behavior applies whether you're in a major metro area or a small town or even a remote tropical island. When you start planning a trip, you don't usually know exactly where you want to stay. Most of us start planning by searching broad, more general keywords like the name of the destination or that plus hotel. And at this stage, the results are going to be owned by your local tourist board, websites like TripAdvisor and Wikipedia, and the OTAs. Their websites are established and trusted. They get tons of traffic, and they're considered high authority by Google. If you're a hotel somewhere in Boston, I'm sorry, you're never going to rank #1 for Boston Hotel. It's just not going to happen. Even if you're right in the center of the city, you are just not the most relevant result for that search. For all we know, the searcher is looking for literally any Boston hotel. So Google's going to give them websites where they can find literally any Boston hotel. This is why TripAdvisor and the OTAs win those really broad general keywords. But most of us don't stop our search there because most of us aren't just looking for any old random hotel. We probably care about staying somewhere central or close to an attraction, or maybe it's a special occasion and we want something luxury or romantic. And as we go through this process of researching, our searches get more and more specific as we start narrowing down exactly what it is we want. These longer, more detailed phrases are called long-tail keywords. They're more specific search terms, usually 4 or more words. The challenge with broad keywords is that there's a lot of competition and you'll have to pay for ads just to outrank them. But because they're so broad, it's also less likely that the searcher is even ready to book yet. So the more specific you get, like with long-tail keywords, you tend to see a lower monthly traffic, but higher potential for conversion. They're also generally less competitive, meaning you have a better chance of ranking on page 1. Now, I'm not saying you should completely ignore a keyword just because it's kind of broad or really popular. Ideally, you want to rank on page 1 for keywords that have the highest possible search volume. But you also need to be able to beat the competition. So how do you do that? There are many factors that go into this, way more than we have time to get into today. But one that can be a good indicator is your domain authority. DA is a score that predicts your entire website's overall likelihood of ranking on a scale from 1 to 100. Your DA is based on a lot of different criteria, like how many other sites are linking to you and whether those sites are also considered trustworthy. You might also hear people talk about page authority, or PA, and it's basically the same scoring criteria, just applied to a single web page, like your rooms page or your weddings page, instead of your entire website. So domain and page authority are also scores that were developed by Moz, which is a software company that sells SEO tools. They're not directly connected to Google. But it is worth getting familiar with these scores as they can help you understand how competitive your website is. You can use Moz's domain analysis tool for free to check your own website or any of your competitors' websites. And what's considered a good score really depends on your market and your competition. So I'm giving you a few examples here, and you can see some sites like the New York Times and TripAdvisor have really high authority scores. So do Hyatt and Marriott and other big chains. But the bottom 3 websites here are all independent hotels or resorts with no affiliation with any big brands. Generally, a domain authority above 30 will put you in a good position to compete for the keywords you want. But again, that might not be the case in a big competitive market like London. If you're a smaller or more niche destination, you can still do perfectly well with a lower domain authority. So in order to figure out which keywords to target and how competitive you are, you do need to do a bit of research. There are lots of different tools you can use to do this, and I've listed some recommendations here on the right, but know that free tools will always have their limits. You can get a lot of useful info from one like Moz Keyword Explorer, but I personally use KeySearch, and whatever tool you're using to research keywords, there are just 3 things that you should keep in mind. Number 1, is there some search volume? Ideally, you want to see more, but like we've just talked about, more search volume doesn't really mean much if you're never going to be able to rank for it. And that brings us to number 2. Can you compete? How difficult is this keyword? What websites are already ranking? Can you create something better? And finally, number 3, is it even relevant? This is a super simple example, but if I ran a hostel in Cape Town, I wouldn't want to target luxury keywords My website just doesn't have what that person is looking for. I know that might sound kind of obvious, but if I am running a luxury property, I might want to consider these two keywords. But for whatever reason, more people going to Cape Town seem to be searching the phrase 5-star hotel than luxury hotel. But it's also less competitive. So in this case, that's the keyword I'd choose to target. But you do have to do some research to figure that out. The second part of this framework is to create content your guests will love. People go to Google because they want or need something. So the entire algorithm is designed around one goal: deliver the best possible answer for the user's problem. Know who your target audience is and focus on creating high-quality content for them. You know your guests better than anyone. You know what they want from your hotel, and now you've done some keyword research, so you also know how they're looking for it. Juliana is going to get into way more detail about writing quality content in her session, but just keep in mind that quality really matters for SEO too. That's because Google's bots don't book hotel rooms. People do, so you need to write for people first and search engines second. You also want to use your target keyword on the page, yeah, but it does need to sound natural. Don't overdo it. Repeating the same keyword over and over again is called keyword stuffing, and Google hates this, but so do the people reading your website. Finally, know the purpose of the page. If someone is Googling wedding venues, do they want a generic events page that just happens to mention that you can do weddings? No, they want to see ceremony floor plans, helpful information about planning, beautiful photos, packages, reviews. The purpose of this page is to attract someone who's planning a wedding and get them to explore the solution that you offer. Always put yourself in their shoes. Think about what that person wants and what will make your page more helpful and relevant to them. Good news for us, this just so happens to be the kind of content Google wants too. This is why I always recommend writing content for people first and then going in and making a few subtle changes to please the search engines. When you're optimizing a page for a specific keyword, there are a few places you should try to have it on the page in as natural a way as possible. Your page title is a big one. This is what appears at the top of your browser tab and on a search results page. Use this space to tell Google and whoever's looking for your keyword what your page is about. Your page description is what displays on a search engine results page. Think of this as your elevator pitch. You want to tell the searcher that your page has what they're looking for. For example, the best afternoon tea in Cape Town. Your page URL is another place you might want to use your keyword. And again, it's a signal to Google that this page is all about afternoon tea in Cape Town. And on the page itself, you want to use headings and subheadings to break up the text. Try to use the actual keyword, but you can also use variations of it or similar phrases to help make everything read a lot more naturally. And the same goes for the actual body text itself. Sprinkle in your target keyword, use some variations of it a few times. And finally, if you have images on your page, you can add what's called alternative text. Alt text are short descriptions of the image that help visually impaired users understand what's on the page. But you can use a keyword here, and that can be helpful for SEO too. So here are two more tools I want to mention that help with all of this. If your hotel website was built on WordPress, you probably already have a tool called Yoast installed. Yoast works like a helpful SEO checklist while you're updating that web page, reminding you to use your target keyword in all of these different places. If you're not using WordPress, a similar alternative is the free writing assistant from SEMrush. This one can also be used right inside Google Docs, which is great if you're like me and you write your content in there first. And again, it kind of acts like a checklist while you're writing out content. Just keep in mind that these are tools. They don't do SEO for you. They help you get better at writing content that appeals to both the search engine and the person reading the page, which is exactly what you need to do. The last part of this three-step framework is to get your house in order, which means you do have to look after a few technical things both on and off your hotel website. First things first, your own website needs to be easy to use. If you're part of a big chain, I know you don't have much control over any of this. And if you're not, you might have a little bit more say, but not necessarily the ability to edit the design yourself. And that is okay. There are still things you can do to make Google and your potential guests happy. First, make sure your website loads quickly, ideally in under 2 or 3 seconds. A lot of that does depend on how your website was designed or developed, but you can make a few small tweaks that do help. Big images and video files can really slow down your website, so ask your photographer to send you compressed files which have a smaller file size without sacrificing quality. You can also compress them yourself using Photoshop or a website like TinyJPG. You should also be linking to other relevant pages on your website to help with the user experience. If you have a hotel blog, that's often a great entry point for someone who's in the early stages of planning. So make sure you're linking them to your rooms categories or your restaurant or anything else that might pique their interest and get them to stay on your website. And speaking of links, nobody likes to click on a broken link that leads nowhere. You can use Ahrefs broken link checker to find these and fix them. And this matters because links are one of the many signals Google is looking for when they decide what websites are relevant and trustworthy. And that brings me to the other side of this step, which is looking at off-page signals. Google doesn't only care about what's on your website. If you're a brick and mortar business like a hotel or a restaurant, you absolutely must claim and update your Google My Business listing. If you do one thing after this session, please take 5 minutes to make sure your Google My Business listing is completely filled out, up to date, has nice photos, and you're responding to the reviews. Aside from their business listing, Google cares about how many other good websites are linking to you. For a hotel, that can be a tourist board, maybe vendors you work with or bloggers you've hosted. Just make sure that wherever you're listed online, your website URL, your name, your address, and your phone number are all consistent. And yeah, getting more high-quality websites to link to you is definitely good for SEO, but there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. Don't buy links. Please don't do this. It's sketchy and Google will penalize you for it. A right way to do it takes a little bit more time and a little bit of effort. But one tip that works really well and doesn't involve too much work on your part is subscribing for Help a Reporter Out. Haro is a daily email with different journalists that are looking for sources and quotes to use in their articles. You can receive only the travel-related alerts like I'm showing here. And just look for opportunities that are relevant to you from good quality websites. You can always, remember, you can always check those websites in the Moz domain analysis tool to see if they're authoritative and trustworthy. If you don't have someone doing your PR, this is a simple way to get a bit of press coverage and a link back to your hotel. So I need to wrap things up, so let's quickly recap. The 3-step framework for improving your SEO. Number 1, pick a race you can win. You need to get familiar with the keywords your audience uses the most and understand whether your website can actually compete. Number 2, create content your guests will love. Focus on quality and readability and write for people first and search engines second. Number 3, get your house in order and make any small technical improvements you can. Make sure your site is easy to use, claim your Google My Business listing, and try to acquire high-quality links from other websites. That was a lot of info, I know. This is a big topic, so hopefully looking at it through a simpler framework helps it feel a bit more manageable for you and your hotel. Feel free to screenshot this slide for all the different tools I mentioned. And I'm also adding my email address here in case you have a question that I don't get to. And that's the end.
Yeah, no, that's great, Jen. I know it's a huge challenge to do a 20-minute presentation of SEO, and which is a topic that most of hoteliers are not familiar with unless they are working directly in marketing. And I'm pretty sure they have a lot of questions. Before I go to some questions, I just want to say hello to Belgium and hello to Brazil as well. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Don't be shy if you're watching us right now to ask your question directly to the specialists here. They are global specialists, so I'm pretty sure they can help you with whatever questions you have. I do have one question, Jen. It's not a really, I know you cover it, but some people enter after we started. So just to highlight a little bit that I think it's so huge. I think this is the key. The SEO, the competition, because I think in many hotels, like you said, more than once actually, that they trying to, you have to choose the race that you can win, right? And that means choosing the right keyword. You talk about long keywords, and if you can just give some examples of what is a long keyword, just for the people that are entering now. And I know hello from Greece, and what exactly it is, and the example you gave was great example, and I think it's a little bit it's easier for them to understand what you mean. And if you could just quickly repeat that, because I think it's key.
Yeah, sure. So basically, when you start researching a trip, you don't necessarily know where you want to stay yet. So you're going to search kind of broad terms. Like the example I used was Boston Hotel. And that's not very specific at all. Like Boston's a small city, but that doesn't help. That doesn't narrow it down. So as you start researching, you kind of start understanding more as the person, the searcher, what you're looking for. Am I traveling with my kids? Maybe I want to find a family-friendly Boston hotel, or a family-friendly Boston hotel with a swimming pool, because that will entertain them and, you know, keep them busy while I'm enjoying a cocktail. So, and the same kind of thinking applies if you're in a big metro area or a small town or a tropical island in the middle of the ocean. People get more specific as they start figuring out what they actually want. So that's why I often suggest looking at those more specific, generally like 4 or more word long keywords, because when people are narrowing in on what they want, they're also more likely to be ready to book. So we want direct bookings. So we want to get people on our website that want what we have. I'm a Boston hotel with a rooftop pool and I'm family friendly. That person is ideal. Like, come to my website and book with us. So let me attract them with this keyword and optimizing my content for it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip, and I think it's two things. I think one is long tail keywords, like you said, like more information you have in the keyword. Let's say, to put it like simple, the best you're gonna target the right people that want you, and to actually choose. I remember you saying in a presentation to choose the right keywords in terms of if you're a hostel, why you would try to attract someone that wants luxurious hotel. Like you have to understand the intention. I think that's much more than the machine and how Google works. So yeah, the great tips, Jen. We're gonna continue here because we have another topic, but Jen, it's still with us. So I can see that people are starting to make questions here. We're gonna go back to this. I'm gonna just say hello to South Africa, Greece, and Bessa here. Bessa Beach Hotel is actually agreeing with Jen here. Yes, really important to choose the right keywords to fight against big ones like Booking, TripAdvisor, which is it's a fight that it's not fair. It's really not fair. So hello from London as well. Okay, so let's jump into the next topic. And again, keep asking your questions, audience. We are loving it. We're gonna go try to answer them at the end of this session. But we're gonna talk about copywriting, which is also a key topic in hotel marketing. So Juliana here, she will share with us 4 steps to writing a better copy for your hotel website. So please, Juliana, go ahead. The stage is yours, and start your presentation. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, hello everyone. Let me just share my screen quickly so we can get started. Okay. So can you just let me know if you can see everything okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, fantastic. Then let's get into this quick and short and sweet presentation about hotel website copywriting and 4 easy steps to writing better copy and getting more direct bookings from all that great SEO traffic you're going to get from following Jen's pointers. So first of all, welcome to the training. Paula already gave me a really nice introduction, but just to recap on that quickly, I used to work in hotels around the world in various departments from F&B to front office. Then I transitioned into PR and copywriting, and now I'm actually specializing in copywriting for the hospitality industry specifically. And in that role, I support international hotel brands and hotel tech companies with copywriting for their website, blog posts, and a variety of other content. And I also create resources about copywriting for hotels, like this webinar, for example, and several other things that I offer on my website. Now, let's just look at what we'll cover in this presentation today. First, we'll talk about why your website copy is actually so important. Then we'll look at how to get ready to write, like what do you need to know before you start writing. We'll look at how to introduce your hotel to your site visitors and create interest among them. And finally, how to build a connection and trust with your site visitors. Now, you might have already heard some of these points before. If you have, that's amazing. That means you're already on the best way to writing fantastic copy for your hotel website. In that case, I also encourage you to just kind of revisit these points and maybe think of some areas where you could even further improve on them and make your website copy even better. Now, let's jump right in and talk about what copywriting is and why it's so important. So copywriting is actually fairly simple in principle. It basically means everything you write for ads or other kind of public material that presents or introduces your business, your offers, your services. So it has nothing to do with copyright or any of that legal stuff, right? It's really something that refers to marketing and public relations. So one area where you'll be doing a lot of copywriting or where you need a lot of copywriting is your website. And if you think about your website, it's kind of like your digital calling card. So why do I say that? Because your website is very often the first place that people will get a real impression of your brand. It makes the first impression of you, if you will. People might have found you first on an OTA because they Googled Boston Hotel, and then they go through this long list of hotels that are listed on TripAdvisor or Booking or wherever, and then they see your property and think it's cool and click on it. But on the OTA, it's the OTA's branding and not yours. So if someone then Googles your property and comes to your website, that's the first time they really come in contact with your brand, your style, and your voice. So that's why your website is so important. Now, your copy on your website helps you introduce your hotel. It helps you share your message and then build that interest and that desire to know more among your site visitors. It also helps you create this connection with people. And if you can do that well, you can get people to book directly via your website rather than going back to an OTA and booking there. And the only thing is that while great copy and a beautiful website can help you achieve all of these things, having poor copy will actually make this a lot more difficult. Now, the good thing is that right now is actually the best time to review your copy and revamp it, because as a lot of properties are struggling now because of the whole COVID situation, we are seeing a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel in many places. And that's why right now is the best time to get your copy and your website updated to make sure you're ready for the ramp up phase, and so that you can capture as much of your traffic as possible in direct bookings and hopefully recover as well as possible in the coming months. So let's get right into step number 1. This is what you need to know before you start writing. You need to know your audience. Now, you've probably heard this from every marketer and their neighbor because it's just the most important thing. You must know your audience. Jen already hinted at that as well. You need to know who is looking for your hotel, who is Googling what. And that just is reflected then again in your copy, because of course you need to present what people are interested in. So in order to address your target audience properly, you'll first need to define your ideal guest persona, right? That's the ideal person you want coming to your hotel because they want exactly what you have, exactly what you are offering. Now, to find your ideal guest persona, you can ask yourself a couple of simple questions. First, who is your ideal guest? How old are they? Where are they traveling from? Are they maybe from your city coming for a staycation? Are they from your state, or are they from out of town? Just like where are they based? Then what demographic do they belong to? Like what's their age group? Do they work, or are they retired? Are they traveling as a couple? Are they solo travelers, or maybe they travel with a group of friends? What's their budget like? What are their spending habits? All of these are things you need to know to get like a very clear image of who it is that's coming to your property. Another important question is, what do people want, need, or desire from you? Like what problem are you solving, or what need are you addressing for them? Maybe guests come to your hotel because they want like an all-inclusive, no worries trip where they can just kick back and completely relax. Or maybe they just want a simple, no frills place to stay, but they want great information about cool things they can do, like the best bars to visit, or the best clubs, or maybe the best outdoor activities, the greatest hikes, or the best hidden beaches in your area. And another thing that's important to consider about these first 2 points is that given today's travel restrictions and all the new rules around which countries you can go to and where you can travel to, your target market or your ideal guest persona might have shifted considerably. If you used to welcome a lot of guests from abroad, then maybe now that's totally changed to being more local guests. So how can you adapt your ideal guest persona and adapt your copy consequently as well to better address these people who might now have completely different needs than the people you used to attract? So really give that some thought when you go over your guest persona. And then Finally, another important point to consider is, how did people find your website? How did they come to you? Maybe they already knew you, Googled you, and clicked on the link directly to your homepage, but maybe they also came to your site from a media feature or maybe a blogger's review about your property. Uh, if you use some of the tools that Jen highlighted, you'll be able to go and see where your website visitors came to your site from. That also helps you understand what were they Googling, like maybe which keyword did they enter to then find your site, or which link did they click to come to your website. That'll also give you a bit of an idea of which media people were consuming and what they might be interested, just to give you a bit more of a background information about your site visitors. Now, let's look at step 2, introducing your hotel, right? Of course, your website kind of does that for you, right? You'll have your great images there and your copy, but let's see how you can use all of that to make the best possible first impression. Now, when your site visitors come to your website, they have a very clear goal in mind, and usually they don't want to spend a lot of time achieving it. So it's your job to help them complete their task as quickly as possible. And that task is checking out your hotel, finding out what you're offering, and deciding if your hotel is right for them or not. Hopefully it is. But in order to show them these things quickly, you'll want to highlight your USPs and highlight the things that your target audience wants to know about. So, like we said before, if you know your ideal guest persona, you'll know the parts of your hotel that they're most interested in, and then you can prominently feature those on your homepage and also in your supporting pages on your website. So, for example, if we take the example that Jen mentioned before about the person who is going on a family trip and they want a hotel with a pool for the kids to play in, then you will want to feature that pool and show that maybe you have a kids club where the kids can play as well, right? So that way, if guests don't know that, they might not consider you. But if you put that there and show them right away, hey, we've got this thing for you that you want, they're much more likely to stick around, explore some more, and then possibly go for the direct booking right away. So, as I mentioned, you want to highlight your USPs right there on your homepage. But then you don't want to slap a whole bunch of additional information there, because then everything will just get way too much and way too difficult for people to read. So instead, I suggest using strong headlines and separate sections on your homepage to highlight the different parts of your hotels, be it your rooms, your F&B, and recreational facilities, and then making your additional information easy to find so that people can click to read more about the thing that they're most interested in. And then you direct them to the supporting page for the more in-depth information. You can, of course, add a very short description, maybe a few bullet points to make your text easy to read and easy to scan. And in that text, you can then also, again, include some of these long tail keywords that people are using to search so that you can rank for that and people immediately see you're the hotel offering the things they want. But most important of all is always to keep things simple, right? You don't want to overload your site visitors with information. You want to keep it short and sweet, and then possibly offer an option to get in touch with you easily, like maybe a direct chat, or leave your email address there so that they can just get in touch and ask any further questions, and then inform themselves more about whether they want to make the booking with you. Okay, now we're heading into step 3, creating interest. So we've introduced your hotel. People have like a basic idea of what you're all about and what you're offering. Now it's time to create some extra interest among your site visitors. So we've already talked about how people come to your website to learn whether your hotel is for them or not as quickly as possible. Now, if you've already sparked their interest, then your next job is to show people how are you going to make their stay amazing? How are you going to make it fun for the whole family? How are you going to give them unforgettable experiences? And the best way to do that is to highlight your benefits over your features. Now, just say it with me again. Highlight your benefits over your features. That's another really, really important thing to always keep in mind when you describe the services or the facilities you offer. Now, since that can sound a bit abstract, right? We don't want to leave you here with just random marketing speak. We'll give a bit of an example here of what I mean with highlighting your benefits over your features. So your features are the physical attributes and services at your hotel, right? It's a concrete thing that you can describe. Your benefits are these intangible advantages that your features have for guests. So the benefits are basically what create this emotional appeal of a feature. Now, to give you a bit more context here, a feature of your hotel might be your pool landscape or your spa, like a physical thing, right? Or your fine dining restaurant or your meeting and event space. All of those features are fantastic, right? But a guest won't book a hotel just because of an amazing pool landscape. Let's face it, that's not gonna like push their booking decision over the edge to click the book now button. But it's the benefit that this pool and the spa promises. And that's a relaxing, worry-free trip. It's a fun day of just maybe sitting and reading a book in the sun, or maybe the pool is a chance to get in a morning swim and get some exercise. Your fine dining restaurant is also not something a guest will just book just for the sake of having that fine dining restaurant there in case they want to reserve. But the benefit it brings is something that's much more emotionally appealing because it promises a fun and memorable experience, maybe a romantic dinner with a loved one, delicious food, something they could snap some pictures of and show off to their family and friends. So it's this emotional benefit that then creates more interest and finally convinces your audience to book. And that's why highlighting these benefits is always important when you talk about your features. Like, you don't want to just rattle off a list of things you're offering, but bring in the benefit and highlight why this is great and what your guests can feel and expect from these features. Now let's look at step number 4 already. Okay, we're going to look at how we can build a connection and trust with site visitors. One thing that's very important to remember when you're writing website copy or content for your blog or your social media is that you are writing the content, you are telling the story, but it's not about you. Everything is about your audience, always, right? You're listing your features and your benefits, not for your sake or to make yourself look awesome, but to show your audience what's in it for them and why they should trust you with their valuable vacation days, right? So to build this connection and this trust, it's important to talk to your audience directly and to make your copy personal. Now, that can look like including words like you and your. So we offer you something, or we'll pick you up from the airport in our limousine, right? So you are you're speaking to them like you were actually talking to them. And depending on your style and what your property is like, you can make this like you can use very elegant and refined language, or you can use really low key and friendly and familiar tone. Like that's totally up to you. But whether you're a luxury hotel or a hostel, I would always recommend to use this second person, like to address the guest directly, to just build this connection and draw them in, rather than writing about we do this for our guests and we do that for our guests, which makes it much more distant and perhaps less personal and less engaging. Right? Then you also want to include your guests in your copy, like perhaps by conjuring up an experience they might have, like if you're describing your pool, you can say, oh, imagine spending a day in the sun, reading your favorite book with the best cocktail right by your side, and more on the way at more is just a call away or something like that. And that's where you're building this mental image. You're creating an experience in their mind where they can picture themselves and just start dreaming about being at your property already. So that then kind of creates this connection again and this desire to experience what you have to offer. And then finally, make your readers feel comfortable and welcome. And just in the way you write, like make yourself approachable. And again, like I already mentioned, having an easy option to get in touch with you directly is very, very valuable. Like maybe you've described your property, but someone still has questions. If they can just reach out via direct chat or at least via an email, then and you reply quickly, you build this trust right away that you're reliable and you get back to them and you want to help them out. Then another thing that's extremely important when you write and when you're addressing your audience on your website is to use your brand voice consistently. That creates a smooth experience for guests. And again, it makes you appear more reliable and more trustworthy because you speak the same way on your website, on your social media, in your blog content, just in all of your communication, right? You create this consistent experience instead of having like this really laid back, fun and friendly social media content. And then your website is suddenly this very refined, very elegant place where it creates like this jarring feeling where people wonder like, wait, is that connected? Is this the right place? And this confusion can lead a lot of people to bounce, unfortunately. So avoid this kind of misunderstanding by keeping your brand voice consistent and applying it all over your communication. Now, I know that can sound a bit challenging to do, especially perhaps if you're working with a team and you have one person writing these things and another person is working on your social media. For that, I think it's a good idea to sit down either by yourself or maybe with your colleagues and take a look at what you want your brand voice to be. How do you want to sound? Do you want to sound friendly and fun? Do you want to sound laid back or elegant or a bit more refined and mature? And then come up with some words and phrases that you'd like to use and some words and phrases maybe that you don't want to be identified with. And then you can use this as a guideline whenever you write something new or when you're going over the copy that you want to edit. And finally, the last important thing to build trust is to include guest reviews on your website. For example, if you use a tool to email people after their stay and get their feedback, you can show those reviews on your website, or maybe include the latest reviews from TripAdvisor. That'll show people that others who are maybe similar to them, also families or couples or people with the same desires or needs, came to that hotel and enjoyed it. And if I read this review, for example, that another couple had a great stay there, I might tell my husband, hey, this hotel sounds fantastic and others are loving it, so let's give it a try. So always include reviews. And the same goes for certifications and any awards you might have recently gotten. Just feature those prominently, be proud of them, and show people that you really live up to the promises you make on your website. So that's already our 4 steps to writing better website copy. Now we can just go over a few more quick things you can do to wrap up the whole copywriting experience, right? Once you're done writing or editing, I suggest you let your copy rest for a few hours, maybe a few days, and then come back to it with fresh eyes. You'll see a few more things that you'll want to edit, remove, change. Maybe you'll spot a few typos that got away. It'll give you a chance to check for consistent style one more time and just make the last few tweaks to make sure everything is right. And of course, your website is a dynamic thing. You can always come back and change it afterwards, but just to make sure you're happy with it at that time. And then finally, you can always get a second pair of eyes on it as well. Like ask a colleague, ask someone who might not have worked with you on the copy to give a fresh look at it and make sure that everything is clear and easy to understand. So now, just for a final quick recap of our 4 steps. Number 1, before you start writing, know your audience. Know who you're writing for, what they need, and what they want from your hotel. Then introduce your property. Highlight your USPs and showcase them prominently. Number 3, create interest. You want to create interest with your site visitors by highlighting your benefits over your features. Always benefits over features. And finally, you want to build a connection and trust. Like, do you live up to your promises? I hope so. Show people that you do. And then lastly, wrap it up, let it rest, give it a final edit, review it, and you're good to go. So that's a wrap for me. And now it's time for more questions from you guys.
Well, thank you, Juliana. I know it's also a huge challenge as well to talk about copywriting in 20 minutes. But you both did a great job. I cannot thank you two enough for that. Before I go to the questions, I just want to say hello to London that I think I didn't before, and to Daniela, she's thanking us. Thanks for taking the time to do this. Thank you, Daniela, for being here with us. And she's also asking if it's being recorded, and yes, so all this information, you can watch the replay, and it can you can take the time to take it in, all that's been said here today. I know it's a lot. So yes, you're gonna all have email after gonna receive an email after this show with the replay, so don't worry. About the copy, Juliana, I do have something that you said, and even someone here that's talking about the brand voice consistency. I think that's a mistake, not only in the hotels, but many other kinds of industries. They make these mistakes. They don't have a consistency in their voice, and I think when we talk about hotels, what we've seen here, at least from our clients and all, it's this question of how much to be personal, like you said, but if you're a luxurious hotel, how you do that in a way. Do you have any advice? I know you cover a little bit about it, but if you can just explain a little bit again about this brand voice, the importance of brand voice and brand voice consistency.
Yeah, for the brand voice, how I like to think about it is, how would your hotel sound, or how would your hotel speak if it was a person, right? Like, that's one way you can approach it. And then also, how do you speak to your guests, or how does your general manager or your receptionist speak to guests? Like, what tone do they have? What words do they use, right? That'll be very different if you're a front desk agent in a hostel versus a 5-star luxury resort on a tropical island, or you're an upscale hotel welcoming mainly business travelers, right? In each property, guests will be addressed differently by the hotel staff. And the way you would speak to your guests is, I think, also something you should reflect on your website, so that, again, you're creating this consistent experience that goes from your website or your social media all the way into the real life experience, which is then on site at the property. So I think that's a great place to start. And then, like I already mentioned, maybe come up with some words or phrases that you want to use, like write it down, actually have a list, and follow that. And then if you have a new colleague, or if maybe you're on vacation and someone else is taking over, whether it's writing emails, updating website copy, or any other kind of content, then that person can follow this list and just check, like, okay, what words do we use to refer to our restaurants? Like, I worked for a hotel where they did not like the word restaurant. It was a venue. Like, they were very specific on that. It had to be referred to as a venue. And they were just really clear with their branding. And it created this really consistent flow from, like, throughout all departments, website, like any communication they ever put out. So I really encourage you to get clear on that, like brainstorm, and you can keep coming back to this. Like, this doesn't have to be a static thing that you do once. Like, just keep adding to this list and like make it a shared doc. Maybe people can add their ideas to it. And another thing is, maybe how you write in your language as well, right? In English, you only have one form of you, but then there's other languages where you have two forms. You have the familiar, friendly you that you use with family and friends, and you have the you that you would use for strangers, guests, superiors in a workplace, or things like people like that. So you need to choose which of these forms of you want to use on your website, right? So I think that's another thing that would have a huge impact in how your brand voice would appear on your site and in your social media communications. And then just practice. Like that'll also come more with time. Like the more you write, the easier it'll get to keep your brand voice consistent.
Great tip, Juliana. Before I go back to Jen here, because I have two questions already about SEO for you, Jen. But just to go back to Juliana, you talking about review as a way to build trust, and I totally agree. But it also, I think it's also a resource for content ideas and even language and maybe even SEO. I don't know, because if you use how the guests describe you and all that, I think it could be good, right, for the content itself.
Oh, big time. Absolutely. I mean, if you have people that are praising your weekend brunch, or that are absolutely loving just like a small detail about your breakfast, like maybe something that you're doing differently from everyone else, you might not think of highlighting that because you do this every day and to you it's normal, but to your guests it stands out. So if you see a specific part of your service mentioned several times on TripAdvisor or whatever review platform you're checking, then like include that, mention that on your website, or feature it in a social media post, or perhaps even write a blog post about it, or write a blog post where you mention that and then link back to your service offering.
Nice. Okay, so let's go to the general questions. Then gonna be to both of you here. So we are heading to the end of the show. If you have a question, this is the time to do it. So just write on the chat. Don't be shy. So Jen, this is for you. If you have time, can you briefly explain how Google selects the image that come on the first page of a search? Image seems to be more and more important in the results. So
yeah. Okay, cool. First, hi Izzy. Thank you for the question. So glad to see you here. Yeah, image search is another ball game, but in terms of just kind of the little things that you can tick off when you're uploading an image to your site, you want to make sure that it's not this massive file that's going to slow your site down. So again, you want to compress that file, make it smaller without sacrificing quality. The other way that you can optimize it is in the naming of the file itself. So say it's like Deluxe Safari Lodge.jpg. Separate those words with a hyphen, basically, and save that as your file name. And then you've gotten your keyword into the file name. The other place that you can do this is in the alt text, so alternative text, which when you upload an image on your site in WordPress or whatever content management system you use, most of the time, if it's a good CMS, they give you the option to put directly in there this alt text. And like I said in the presentation, this is meant to help visually impaired users because their screen readers can read what that image is. So don't just throw your keyword in this over and over and over again. That's keyword stuffing, and it's not nice for visually impaired users. So get your keyword in a natural way. Describe the photo, because if you're describing the photo, your keyword is going to get in there naturally, assuming that your keyword aligns with what the photo is, which hopefully it does. And then the last thing I would say is there's technical stuff that your developer who built your website needs to have in place. And this is where I lose myself, because this is XML markups and image sitemaps, and this is where it can get a little hairy. So just in conversation with your developer, be asking these questions are you setting these things up for, are you setting our website up for success in this way? But to keep it simple, just get your keyword into the file name, make sure it's a small file size without sacrificing quality, and try and write an alt text description that uses the keyword in a natural sounding way. Yeah.
Nice. Very, very nice, Jen. I have another question here about long tail keywords tips. So long tail keywords help establish the niche of your hotel that distinguish it from other hotels in the area. How can establishments optimize this in copy?
Yeah. Okay. So with long tail keywords, or really any keyword research, there's kind of the two kind of steps that I would take. Number one, I would want to brainstorm ideas first. So think about your audience, which we've said many times, but think about who that kind of traveler is. Is this, is this someone who's, are you an LGBTQ friendly destination and you want to attract and make it clear that you're welcoming to those travelers? Are you family friendly? Are you a really romantic spa resort in the middle of whatever? You want to think about your audience, and when you're doing that, brainstorm ideas for how they might search for you. Think about the features that you have. So your spa, if you have one. Do you have a rooftop? Do you have a restaurant? What kind of restaurants? All those different things are features. So include that when you're brainstorming. Think about points of interest near you. So physical locations or attractions. This could also mean specific neighborhoods. Think about neighborhoods that are a bit more generally known. So you don't want to go too niche. But if you're in, sorry to use Boston again, I lived there a while. So Back Bay, Seaport, downtown instead of downtown crossing. No one wants to call it that. Like, think about how your audience is looking up those points of interest. And the last bit would be segments. So that's 4 kind of topical categories when you're brainstorming ideas. And it is all about, like you say, pinpointing those niche things that make you stand out, make you different. Yeah, maybe there's a bunch of hotels in Boston Seaport District that have nice bars and restaurants. You really have to hone in even further on what makes you different. And when you're doing all that brainstorming, you're going to end up with a big long list of ideas. Where you narrow it down is going in and researching those ideas. That's when you want to use a free tool like Moz Keyword Explorer. There's many others, or a paid tool, which to me I think is worth the investment if you're serious about this. You want to find out which of those ideas that you had are people actually searching for, and that's going to narrow down your list significantly, and really help you sort of pinpoint what you want to target. And then in terms of what goes on the page, this goes back to what Juliana is saying. It's quality content. What is what matters to that person who's looking for a hotel in downtown Boston with a rooftop swimming pool that's family friendly? This is where, keyword tools don't always uncover the actual intent of what that person wants, but you, being a person, can infer that, they want something family friendly. Let me talk about the experience that I have to offer that makes this so family friendly. And yeah, having all that kind of that approach to just creating quality, helpful content, like Juliana is saying, it helps in SEO because you want to be the best possible answer for that search query. So it's not about necessarily being the best top hotel in your city, but knowing what you have to offer that is special and unique, and making the effort to get that across on the web page, because that aligns with the user, what they want, and what Google wants, which is to give the user the best possible content. That was a little rambling.
Yeah, no,
I hope that answers
amazing.
the question.
I think so too, and like you both were talking about the content itself. One thing that is to think about too, Juliana said about the benefits and what to highlight. I think it's also a time to rethink what you can highlight right now in this world we are living now that can make sense, because like Juliana also mentioned, maybe your guest persona has changed, maybe like you have this big area, conference area, and now you change it for something else, I don't know. So it is dynamic. The thing about marketing is that dynamic. You can just just keep doing the same things. You have to always keep an eye on what people are looking for and what the market wants. So yeah, great answer, ladies. I have one last question though, because we have already after 1 hour, we passed already 1 hour, but we have one last here that I want. This just goes to Juliana more. Following the brand voice consistency, how to make a differential between 8 hotels belonging to the same brand. I understand the fact that each has different benefits, but they all end being similar. That's really a tricky one.
That's true. Yeah, that is actually a good question. Well, if you're saying that the 8 hotels belong to the same brand, I would definitely say, or I would definitely recommend like an overarching theme for your brand voice and an overarching style. And then I think it's fine to have very subtle differences just for each hotel. Of course, you don't want to make them all sound completely the same, right? But for example, if they're maybe in different cities or even different countries, depending on how your business is set up, then you can, just by the way you present your different facilities in each of these properties, you're already using different words, different phrases, and presenting things differently. And if you really want to differentiate a bit more between each of these properties, then I would suggest again to pull out the spreadsheet and create maybe a specific brand voice guideline for each property to actually be clear. Okay, for this hotel, this is what we're going to say. For the other hotel, we're going to say that. And I think if your properties are all a little bit different, you might have different target markets as well. You might have different things that people value because they're from different target markets. That will kind of naturally impact your brand voice and make you shift a bit just because you're presenting a different facility or service to different people, right? So I think if you just go into looking at what are you presenting, again, look at who you're presenting it to, you're gonna shape your brand voice according to this target audience automatically if you've done your keyword research and your and created your ideal guest persona.
Great. Well, I think we could have to talk much more.
Oh yeah.
But I think you two gave many practical tips that I'm pretty sure the audience appreciate and gonna use it. So that's it for today, everybody. It was a great workshop, and I hope you all had a good time and learned some tricks and tips to apply now and get more bookings. That's all we want, right, at the end of the day. So I want to thank my guests for their amazing presentations and for being here today. So thank you so much, Jen, for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And thank you so much, Juliana, as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was amazing.
And if you have any comments about the show, any feedbacks, we would love to hear from you. You can write on the chat, or you can contact us directly. We're gonna put now on the chat the webpage, Jen's 5-star content website, and we're gonna also put Juliana's hospitality copywriting website, and also Asksuite's website too. You can always contact me directly on LinkedIn, Paula Carreirão. I know it's a horrible last name for those that are not Brazilian, but you can copy and paste my name from the workshop information, and I'm the only one on LinkedIn with that last name, so I'm easy to find. And I would love to know what you guys think about this workshop, this format, and also if you have any suggestions for future topics that we could cover. So if you need any help from copywriting, SEO, I definitely recommend this too. They're here on the show. Don't be shy. Contact us. And thanks again, everybody, for being here. And I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being
Bye-bye.
here.
Bye-bye.